d'une question à une question de suivi par journaliste.
Various activities, and we have a group that golfs from the guys that are there in the park, and it's close to all beaches. Like we're 10 minutes away from really good stuff, 20 minutes away from really, it's centrally located, so it's. You like it? I love it. Yeah, I love it.
So you leave what before Christmas or after Christmas for a couple of months? Or what?
Yeah, well, in 2020, I had to stick around for paperwork for my pension,
Yeah.
and then so we didn't leave until the end of January, and then came back sort of late March because of COVID. But hopefully we can go next year, and I'd like to leave just after Christmas and stay till April. But we'll see, of course.
Yeah. Well, this year might be
Better?
I don't know, like
If I can fly to a warmer climate this year, I'll escape Christmas and
Well, I
New
just
Year.
don't know how long
Yeah,
this is going to take.
I know.
even if we get our vaccine and you have what 85% of the population vaccine, you still can catch it. The 15 remaining percent.
Yeah, you can catch it. The vaccine, all it does is prevent you from extreme symptoms and dying.
And
Apparently.
die.
From dying, because I know this couple who's 79, he's in good shape.
Yeah.
He had his vaccine and he got a variant.
Oh,
He
Jesus.
was so sick. So sick.
But did he have both those?
Uh, no, but
And
still.
was it
Still.
more than 20? Was it more than 21 days after
It
his
was
first dose?
roughly 2 weeks.
That wasn't 21 days.
Still, I mean, it wasn't the 80%.
So that's kind of normal because you have one dose less they're not really good, so you have to call
You live in Ontario or Quebec?
Ontario.
Ontario. Well, it's true. I mean, they're not. You're going to wait a while because they're not vaccinating those that are in their 20s, right? So
Thank
you're
you.
just gonna.
Thank you.
You'll have to.
Good
Thank
thinking.
you.
Just saying.
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna wait a while. I'll go with that. But then I would probably get the AstraZeneca because use this one. Yeah.
Well, they're starting 40 plus.
Yeah,
At the pharmacy. Yeah.
yeah, if I would be 40 plus, I'd drug test.
They say once we have the two doses of AstraZeneca, it's 100% prevention of getting hospitalized and dying. So I'll take that. I might still get sick, but I won't get hospitalized or die.
But you know what? That's true of all of them, right?
That's true of all of them. So
So-
whatever they say, efficacy-wise, as long as I don't get to the hospital or I don't die, I'm happy.
Yeah, exactly.
I got the flu, I had all sorts of things. I had the scarlet fever when I was 7 years old, I almost died. Screwed up my whole system, but
You're still here.
I'm still here. So how worse could it be?
Yeah. No, it's fair.
Spreading so fast, it's crazy.
I know.
My daughter was at the hospital.
Hey, how's it going?
Wednesday with 16 patients.
Heads up, 30 seconds for Jagmeet Singh, 30 secondes pour Jagmeet Singh.
Okay, heads up.
Bonjour, good morning. I want to start off by outlining what we want to see in the budget. Given how serious things are, two things are top of mind for us. We want to see in this budget. One is we want to see an improvement of paid sick leave. We know that people are getting sick at work, and we know that workplaces are the highest risks of transmission. Workers are getting sick and bringing that back to their families. We need to improve access to paid sick leave. We need to see it improved. That's something that we want to see. And so far, we've not heard anything from the releases or the information coming out about the budget that this budget will improve paid sick leave. And that's a big concern. Secondly, and fundamentally, the big question about who pays the price of this pandemic and who pays the price for the recovery. We want to see the ultra rich pay the price for this recovery, pay for the pandemic. And so far, we've not heard anything about that. Those are two things that are fundamental and vital. We also haven't heard anything about universal pharmacare in this being in this budget. We'll wait to see the results of the budget, but that's something that's very troubling for us as well. We know that in this crisis, we need to immediately help people. And so we are calling folks that are hardest hit. These are folks that are getting sick, and these are folks that are not getting vaccinated. This is a problem. On top of that, we know that workers aren't able to take time off to get vaccinated or to stay home when they're sick. So we're calling on the government to use the Emergencies Act, specifically a public health emergency, and provide specific help to get to those communities that are hard hit, to help workers stay safe. So far, we haven't seen any commitments from the budget that would do this. We'll wait and see the exact budget before we respond specifically on that, but these are some of the things that we want to see, and we need to see them urgently. Donc, ce qu'on veut voir dans le budget, deux questions essentielles. Comment on va aider les travailleurs essentiels? Et un outil essentiel, primordial pour les aider, c'est une amélioration du programme de congé des maladies payées. C'est fondamental et on va continuer de mettre la pression pour améliorer ce programme, pour aider les travailleurs. Deuxièmement, la grande question, qui va payer la facture pour la relance et pour la pandémie en général? Notre réponse à cette question, c'est et on doit s'assurer que les ultra-riches payent leur juste part. Mais on n'a pas jusqu'à ce moment vu aucun détail, aucune idée que le gouvernement libéral, que Justin Trudeau, va s'assurer que les ultra-riches payent leur juste part. Ça, c'est un grand problème. Et on a exigé le gouvernement libéral d'utiliser les mesures d'urgence en Ontario spécifiquement pour immédiatement aider dans la livraison des vaccins et deuxièmement pour améliorer l'accès aux congés des maladies payés. Ça, c'est essentiel à travers le pays, mais en particulier en Ontario, la situation est une catastrophe et la situation est catastrophique et on doit immédiatement aider les gens. Donc, ce sont nos demandes et ce qu'on veut voir. Je suis prêt pour vos questions. I'm ready for your questions.
And we'll now take questions, starting with questions on the phone. Quick reminder, one question, one follow-up per reporters. Nous allons maintenant passer aux questions, en commençant par des questions au téléphone. Un petit rappel, une question suivie par journaliste. Opératrice, avons-nous une première question?
Thank you. Merci. Please press star 1 at this time if you have a question. S'il vous plaît, appuyez sur étoile 1 maintenant pour poser une question. There will be a brief pause while the participants register for questions. Il y aura un court délai vous permettant de vous enregistrer dans la file d'attente pour la période de questions. Thank you for your patience. Merci de patienter. And our first question is from Jim Bromskill with the Canadian Press. Please go ahead. La parole est à vous.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm wondering, Mr. Singh, whether you had any consultations with Justin Trudeau before this budget was assembled, and if so, if you can tell us anything about that. Was there any dialogue, any effort to listen to what you had to say about what should be in the budget?
Certainly, we said, I said a couple of things that were important. We had an opportunity to dialogue. There's a conversation that I had with the Prime Minister, and I outlined a couple of things. First off, I said again that we need to see better paid sick leave. That is essential. That is so important. Workers are getting sick. We need to protect them. We fought hard for paid sick leave in the first place, but it is not good enough. We need to make it better. So that's one. Secondly, I said that we need to get the vaccine to the communities that are hardest hit. That some of the hardest hit communities, the most vulnerable workers, are the ones that have the lowest rate of vaccination. So we need to get better to get the vaccine to people who need it most. And that's what I raised. I also highlighted how this pandemic, as I've said before, is one that has disproportionately impacted women. And one of the most important tools to help women get back to work, to increase the job participation, is having a strong, universal, affordable childcare. And so I fought for that and continue to put pressure on that. And as I said before, we want to make sure that it's the ultra rich that pay the price of this pandemic. That's something really important. I asked for that. And in general, the things that the Liberals have promised for decades, we wanted to see not just childcare, which the Liberals have promised for over 2 decades, but also universal pharmacare. And I raised those concerns that these are things that people need and need to be in the budget.
You've been pretty clear about not wanting to have an election now. You don't feel it's the time, that you'd like to see efforts focused on dealing with the pandemic and getting Canadians back to work and all of that. Everyone is wondering, however, is there a chance that your party will vote against the budget bill? And you're walking out of a tightrope there, I suppose. So what is your latest thinking on support for this document? Is there a threshold that you need to see in order to provide your support?
Well, there are a lot of ways that we can continue to apply pressure and to fight for the things that Canadians need, and we're going to do that. We're going to continue to fight for better paid sick leave. We're going to continue to fight to make sure we are getting the vaccine to communities in need. We're going to continue to fight to make sure there is a real childcare program that is universal and accessible and affordable for Canadians. We're going to continue to fight for universal pharmacare. These are things we're going to continue to fight for, and we're going to continue to fight to make sure that the ultra-rich pay their fair share and that they're the ones that pay the price of this pandemic. These are things we're going to fight for. But I want to be very clear. We have said, as Canadians agree, it would be unsafe and it would be unfair to Canadians to have an election right now with the pandemic and the third wave where it is. This would be unsafe and unfair. We are worried about people We are going to continue to fight for people, but I'm going to be responsible and make sure that I'm making a decision that does not in any way jeopardize the health of Canadians. So we are not interested in triggering an election. We are interested in fighting for the help that people need.
Operator, next question.
Thank you. Merci. Once again, please press star 1 at this time if you have a question. N'hésitez pas à appuyer sur étoile 1 pour toute question. There are no further questions registered at this time, Ms. Thibault.
And we'll take a question from the room. David?
Hi, Mrs. Singh. Good to see you. David Thurton, CBC News.
Good to see you.
What you're calling for is a bit unprecedented. So how specifically would you like to see this broad-ranging act be used in this circumstance?
So I really appreciate the question. So what we've called for is the Emergencies Act to be used. Once it's declared, once a public health emergency is declared and the Emergency Act is used, we want it to be used specifically for two things. In Ontario right now, the situation is literally catastrophic. We've got healthcare workers that are at their end. They've been pushed to the limits for a year now, and things have gotten to the worst they've ever been right now. Healthcare workers are at the verge of breaking. They're so under so much pressure. It is so hard for them right now. So they need help. And the Prime Minister made an announcement of some help over the weekend, which is welcome. But we need to go beyond that. And the reason why we need the Emergencies Act, there's two specific things that we can do using the Emergencies Act. First off, we know that paid sick leave and giving workers the ability to take time off to get vaccinated, time to stay home when they're sick, these are things that the Emergency Act will allow us to have more tools to do. Secondly, we need to get the vaccines to the communities that are hardest hit. And that is something that has been a failure in Ontario. Doug Ford has failed absolutely. The poorest communities, the communities hardest hit, the communities with the most racialized people, the communities with the most essential workers are the ones with the lowest vaccination rates. That is a problem that has to be fixed. And that's what I'm calling for, using the Emergencies Act to address these two specific things in Ontario right now.
On Friday, Premier Doug Ford announced that he would be giving more powers to the police. He's since changed his mind on that. The Emergencies Act would curb certain freedoms for Canadians. So I guess my question to you is, how is what you're calling different from what Doug Ford did, which was widely criticized? And how would you protect, the freedoms of Canadians who, many of whom don't feel comfortable with the police and don't feel comfortable with increasing policing in communities, which, invoking the Emergencies Act might bring about?
I really appreciate that question because I want to clarify this. I've been very vocal over the weekend. I was very vocal that increasing police powers is not going to help. Increasing police powers will not make people safer, and I am against that. I'm firmly against that. With the new Emergencies Act, separate from the past legislation, this actually does not in any way impact police powers. This Emergencies Act states very clearly that policing remains in the jurisdiction of the federal or the provincial governments. So it does not in any way impact policing, nor should it, because that is not going to solve the problem. I am not in any way suggesting increased police powers. In fact, I'm against that. And I came out against that over the weekend. What we do need to do is use our powers that we have to get the vaccine to people that need it most and to get supports, payments to people. And those are two things specifically that this Emergencies Act will allow us to do, give us more ability to get the vaccine to those who need it and to help workers stay home when they're sick, to have payment when they do go to get vaccinated. That's what this is about, specifically those two things.
Et nous allons retourner une dernière fois au téléphone, vérifier si nous avons encore des questions. Opératrice?
Thank you. Merci. Once again, please press star 1 at this time if you have a question. De nouveau, n'hésitez pas à appuyer sur étoile 1 pour toute question. There are no questions registered at this time.
Ceci met fin à la conférence de presse. Merci. This concludes the press conference. Thank you.
Merci, thank you.